Hey guys, Eric here with LaserCraft Works. I wanted to do a video on a product I'm pretty excited about from Lone Star Adhesive. They sell something called Romark Acrylic, which they don't own Romark, but they do own the adhesive that they put on it. It's called Durable Adhesive, and it's an adhesive that I use personally for my leather patch hats already. It works really well. I have a single platen heat press, so it's not anything that you need crazy fancy equipment for. I mean, obviously, the better equipment you have, the better results you can have. But you can still get professional results even with a single platen press. And I wanted to show that that translates onto the acrylic patches as well. So this hat is a patch that a family member requested. Really loves 4th of July, really loves the Back It Up video, so I told him I would give it a try, and I ordered the acrylic and didn't have too much trouble with it really. So I just wanted to show my process and just let you guys know that it's really not too difficult to do, and you can absolutely do it with an X-Tool P2. So if that's the kind of equipment that you have, don't be intimidated by this because it is absolutely possible. So before we get too far into it, I do want to share my settings. I find that's a point of frustration for me in a lot of tutorials is they don't immediately share the settings. So if you want to work alongside while I'm doing this, feel free. To cut the acrylic, my settings are, give me just a second here. So for the red layer, my settings are 40% power, 400 speed, 1 pass, and 230 or 240 lines per inches. My blue settings is 20 power, 400 speed, 1 pass, 180 lines per inches, or lines per centimeter, I apologize. And then my cut settings are 75 power, 15 speed, and that should cut straight through. I do want to note that when I do the engraving and cutting, I do them separately because I unplug my air assist at the laser head, and I'll show you how to do that. I feel that that gives me the best results possible, and it's really easy to do as long as you take your time, and there's a connector in there so you don't have to cut anything, and once you're ready to cut, you just push that connector right back in. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, I'm using an X-Tool P2. I am going to unhook the air assist. So there's a connector back here. Let me bring the camera in really close so you can see it. And I'm holding the camera, so excuse me for any shakiness here. What you want to do is you want to push this connector in and just pull your tube out. So that's your air assist. That's how you quickly disable it. X-Tool limits the air assist. They make it so you can only do 30%, nothing lower. And for these acrylic patches, you really do want it to be turned off. So that's how I'm going to accomplish that. Please note that by disconnecting your air assist, you do run the risk of getting your lens dirty, debris kicking back up into your lens. I personally have extra lenses and I know how to clean them, so I'm not too concerned about that, but just be warned that that is a possibility. There was my first attempt at these patches. Obviously I didn't defocus. You can see that I had a little bit of scratching in there, so we'll talk about defocusing as well. It's really simple. I just add 2 millimeters to my cut, and that allows the material to have a little bit of a wave to it, because this stuff isn't perfectly flat when it's on, even on the honeycomb. And some materials go a little bit higher or lower in certain spots, and it depends on how you're holding it down as well. So defocusing allows me to bring the laser head up a little bit and still get clear results. But anyways, yeah, that's how you disconnect the air assist, and once you get to your cut part, you will just connect that back. So only do your 2 engravings, and then when you're getting ready to cut, put that back, and you won't have any flare-ups with the higher power. So okay, on to the next part of the video. next step is going to be to clean your patch. You are going to get some residue from the laser, so especially with your air assist off, that stuff has to go somewhere. So a lot of times it's just a little bit of charring, and so I do a layer of LA, totally awesome. And then I just take a magic eraser and I just clean the patch up. So once it's to the point where you think that it's acceptable, just clean it off. Make sure you didn't miss anything. And another thing to pay attention to is around the edges on the back. Probably spray your magic eraser for that instead of on the patch itself, and just kind of go around the edges, because when you press it, that residue is going to come off a little bit, because the shape of the patch changes just ever so slightly when you apply heat. So just get it nice and dried off, and then there's your patch. Alright, so how's that saying go? There's 100 ways to skin a cat. Pressing the caps are kind of the same way. There's a lot of ways to do it. A lot of them work, some of them may not, but this is what works for me. So I take out my paper on the hat, I put it on my press, try to line things up a little bit, snug it down, and I always pull the sweatband out of the way, because I've had some weird lines show up using that. So one trick is always make sure your press is looking at you straight on. So try to get things as straight as possible. Pretty light on the pressure here on the acrylic stuff. I'll pull that down and just make sure it's getting good connection everywhere I want it to connect. Look at my patch location. I like it about there's where I'm going to want it. So what I do is I preheat my hat for about 40-50 seconds, and then once it's preheated, that'll help the patch adhere a little bit. Some people do heat up their patches. I haven't found that to be necessary for the patch size that I'm doing, but if you do need to heat it up, you can always use a heat gun to just make it a little bit more pliable so it bends a little bit easier. Also, another thing to make sure is that you have something to go in between the press and the hat. I like these silicone pads. I think they're technically for like mug sublimation, but they work really good for hats. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now my hat is preheated. I want to check it, make sure I don't have any strange creases. I do not. So I'm going to place my patch, get that lined up to where I want it. I think that looks pretty good. Make sure I'm looking at it head on here. I think that looks about right. So now I'm going to press it with medium pressure for about 50 seconds. And I will say my son is extremely excited to model this hat for you once it cools down. So make sure you say hi to him in the comments. Showing you guys the laser. So let's look here. So the patch is going to be very pliable still. Let me get up to where I can see it here. And there you have it. So that's how you do these hats in the acrylic. That's a pretty cool hat, dude, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You like it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Say happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.